Hi guys, and welcome back here to the Dev Realm, and today we're going to be carrying on our series. And if you guys remember what we did on last episode is that we improved our actor interaction here. So now we have a little bit, it's not always on the floor, it's following up a little bit on top. So today we're going to have to implement the socket logic. Alright, so to implement the socket logic, we already have everything in it. All we're going to do here is that before we move this on the free location, I want to make sure that if you are hitting any actor, so I can actually do a print, I can actually do a print, and I can check the heat component, or in this case, heat actor, right? Now if I place that, it's fine. Now I'm not going to be able to see that, which is not what I'm looking. Let me double check. I need to draw this for persistence. Nice. So I can see that I'm hitting stuff, So for example, here is not identifying that I'm hitting the actor itself, but it's because the actor, it doesn't have the interaction. You see, it's disabled. So what we gotta do here is I'm just gonna browse to assets. I'm gonna delete it. I'm gonna bring the base frame so you can see if you're hitting that or not. So now we can see we're hitting the base frame, but the socket is not being heated, which is a problem. Now, so what we gotta do here is that we need to change a couple of things on the socket itself. So let's go back to the collision. So say no collision. So now if I do, let's say block all, let's see what happens. Do we have a collision on it? Yes. We do have a collision on the base socket, which is pretty much what we're looking for. Which is exactly what we're looking for, is fine. So instead of, because the problem is that if you leave it blocked at all, like I can't move it, and I don't want to do that. So I'm gonna have to make sure that we do custom. Let's do overlap everything. So I can move freely, but I can still interact with the item, right? That's fine. Now if I do that, I still can't hit that, which is fine. But let me try pawn. Will the pawn work? Nope. So if I do, maybe I'm gonna try those 4, and then if they work, we can start to put them down. So that worked, it's fine. So let's try visibility. Still works, that's good. So we're doing one by one. I think it's the camera. Yes, okay. Camera, and then everything else is just overlap. Perfect. So now we can hit it, but our player can't interact with it, which is everything we want. Nice. Now that we have the information, all we gotta do here is that once we get the actor, we're just gonna basically do is get the, or can we do equal? Now we need to get the class. Sorry, get class. And then what we gotta do is that we need to make sure that the class equals whatever we're trying to look for, which is, in this case, socket, right? Now compile and save that. Now what happened is that we can now do a print and see if this becomes red, true or false, true. Now it should go to false, true. True, false, true, false. Remember, this one is because we disable the collision. Now, all we gotta do here is that we're gonna make sure that it's gonna disable the debug. Now, if it's true, which it is, we're gonna basically create a branch. And if it's false, we do whatever we're doing before, right? So we can keep moving. But once it's there, you see it's not moving anymore. Perfect. I just placed the item, but we can still have the same issue. Like we want to make sure. I'm not sure why that one is not working. But anyway, let's fix this issue first, and then we move to the next one. Now we need to get the socket snap location, right? So what we're gonna do here is that we get the actor, and on this case I'm gonna cast to a socket, and from the socket I'm gonna get the snap location. From that snap location I am gonna basically get my part here, set actor location. Yeah, actually we need to set the actor location rotation, set actor location and rotation, because we need to make sure that they are aligned exactly on the way we're looking for. And now we basically need to get the actor get world location. So we plug the world location there, and get world rotation. So we also I think we can get maybe get world, sorry, transform. I think if you get a get transform. Well, anyway, let's do the world location and rotation. I'm not sure if we need to get a transform, because then we will probably screw up with the size of the piece. And let's see if this is gonna work. Now it does work, which is what we're looking for. Nice. Now I can move it, but then once it goes there, it snaps in place. It's a little bit buggy, but still on the right location. Nice. Now just for debugging to see more or less what is going on here, I'm gonna do for maybe 1 frame. Let's see what happened. Okay. Persistence, let's see. I mean, it did work at that time, but it's not. It's a little bit. Let's check here again. So we are getting the world location and the world rotation, and we are setting the actor location and rotation to whatever we have on the base socket. So I'm just gonna do a print here. Let's check, make sure. So it's true. So I can go back, load up. So if I go back and target here, so it did add to the right place, which is what we're looking for. But if I am on front, I think this is being. I think when we add the socket, we need to do something. For example, let me just double check. So if I do a print here, again, I'm just gonna do a print, and on the persistence level, I'm gonna do a none, and then we're gonna press play. So we added that, but it's not doing the print. Why is it not saying hello? Alright guys, so I was just spending some time doing some investigation here that I found the issue. So the problem is that on the socket I added all the collision on the wrong piece. I added all the collision on here. So make sure that this snap location, you go here and you make sure it has no collision, because we don't care about this. The thing that we care is the main socket, right? So the main socket, you're gonna select here custom. Okay, let's just search for collision preset, custom, and you're probably gonna have something like that. Make sure it's only everything is overlapped, a part of the camera which is blocked. Blocked means it hits, right? So we can hit with the camera. So if I do that, you see I can hit with the camera, which is what we want. So now if I go back, you see now I can snap things easily. Now what I'm gonna do here is I think we need to improve this camera, because right now it's very janky the way it's working. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go back to my event graph here on the BPC building part, and let's just use the events that we already have. So when we start the building thing, I am gonna basically call, how can I say, what's the best way of doing this? Like, do we create an event? Well, we can actually use an interface for that, which will be the best probably outcome for this. So what I'm gonna call here is, I'm gonna create a function called enable disable building camera, right? And now what we gotta do here is that we're gonna add an input called enable or disable, right? Sorry, enable on the input. Now that we're using this, what we can do is that we can go back here to our BPC building, and when we start to build the information, right, what we can do is that we can call from that enable disable building camera. So we can call the interface from the owner, right? And let me just put this here. The next thing we need to do here is we need to disable that. And to disable that's quite easy, because it's when we confirm the part. So we're just gonna place it here. When the player confirms the part, we disable. Now, nothing's still gonna happen yet because we need to program the whole thing. So we need to tell the engine to say, hey, just use this part here, please. So what we're doing now is that we're gonna go back here to the player, right? And now if you notice, I'm just gonna open up here. We have here now a new interface, and this is called enable disable building camera. So it's gonna create an event. So the first thing we're gonna do here is that we're gonna create basically what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna get our player camera, so the boom here, right? And we are gonna move it a little bit to the right, like that, okay? So we're gonna move, let's say, -100. So if I go back here to that, we're gonna basically set relative location, and that is going to be, again, which one was it? I forgot. Is on the y-axis -100. So on the y-axis, it's going to be -100. What we can actually do here, maybe we can do a select, and we can plug this value there. So if it's true, we do -100. If it's not, we just leave it as 0000, right? So enable or disable the player building mode. Now we can compile and save that. Let's see. Now it's a little bit better, but now there's a problem. I would like to see when I place the part, it goes back to normal, right? Which is fine, which is really good. Now we don't know where's the aim. That's the problem. We don't know where the player is aiming. So we need to kind of figure out a way to do that. And basically, the way we do that is just by literally going to the canvas here. So for example, we're going to create a UI folder. And this is going to be called, let's say, what is it? Player, user interface, blueprint, this one. I'm going to call this WBP main building UI or something. And on the main building UI, we're going to add a canvas here. And now I'm going to add circle. Do I have any circle? This is bad. Nope. That's not what I was looking for. Do we have any button around it? I mean, we can use, I guess we can use an image. You know what, guys? Let's just do it properly now. So there's called game icons. This website called game icons. Let's add aim. Search for aim. Sure, we can use this. We can always, you know, refactor this, improved. Actually, what I'm gonna do is just, I want to make a circle, and I want to make none. There we go. And I would like to, no, the color is fine. Is it possible to add texture, pattern? That's fine. Let's just download the SVG here. Perfect. Now what I'm doing here is that here I'm gonna create a new folder called texture. And now on my downloads, t-aim. The reason why I call t-aim because the Unreal Engine, they ask me when you're adding assets to it, you need to add with that name. But anyway, now what I can do is that size to content is too much. I'm gonna basically call this aim image. Now I'm gonna wrap with scale box. Perfect. Now we need to decide how big do we want this scale to be. In this case, you know, very tiny. Even that, to be honest, is quite big, but we can always figure out a way to decrease that size. So I'm just gonna make sure it's always on the middle of the screen because that's where the camera is. Now if we press play, this is not gonna work because we need to load that. And there's a way we can actually load this. I was playing around the other day. I'm not a fan of how they do it, but you can actually use this HUD class. And then on the HUD class, we can use that to load that. But I'm just going to load it traditionally. So I'm just going to go back here to the main widget. Now, the way I would like to do this, it's very simple, and it's to do by the building here. So for example, now we have the event called Start Building Manager, and we have the player controller, right? So what I can do here is that I can create a widget. So create widget from a class. This class is going to be this. Now the player is going to be the player controller, so it's the owner of this, right? And now what we can do is that we can add to the viewport. Actually, yeah, we're gonna add that to the viewport is fine. And we're gonna just call this widget ref. This is the reference of the widget itself. Now we're gonna plug this here, plug that here, select, press key, Q, and then it aligns everything. Start the player widget. Now if I press play, I will have the aim, whatever we need to be. And as you can see, it's kind of whatever we are, which we're trying to aim. So if I go back and add that, it looks better already. That's what I'm looking for. One thing is that we need to find a way to disable the character. We can do that in a second. Now the next thing we need to do is that we need to enable that and disable that on demand, right? So we're gonna go back here and we're gonna call this aim box. Make sure it's a variable. Go back to the graph, create a custom event called API toggle aim, right? Now what we're gonna do is that we're gonna get an aim box set visibility, and now I think is the we need to call the set visibility function visibility. Plug it right there. It's fine. Plug this here. Set the visibility of the widget. Now, by default, we need to make sure this is hidden. So we're gonna go back here to visibility, collapsed. Now what we're gonna do is that we go back to our blueprint here, and we find the event which is the start building. Nice here. All we gotta do is that we can make it that we get the widget reference, and we're gonna call the API toggle aim, right? And make sure it's visible. Now once you place the part, I am gonna just mark it here. After we can maybe move that into a function, and then we can call that function like enable or disable building game or whatever. So in essence, we're just building a game, like we're creating a building game pretty much. But look at that. That it's working a little bit better. Now it's not disabling because I need to make sure it's collapsed. There you go. Now that's fine. So it works a little bit better. Although the player gets in the way. No, actually it doesn't get in the way. That's fine. Now, what I would like to do here is that for the socket is make sure the radius is like 80. It's quite a generous radius because you want to make sure that if you heat it there, you know, it at least does whatever you're trying to heat that. Now, last thing I would like to do here, guys, just before we finish this is, let me just put this here, set actor rotation, is that when you get on the graph here, so we get the socket part, right? When the socket is added, I don't want to be able to add anything else on that socket unless I tell the game to do it. Like, so what we can do here is that we can go back to the base socket. We're gonna add a new variable called can be used or something. Make sure it's public. Compile and save that. And now I'm going to create here a custom event called API can be used, right? And actually we're just going to use this to set that to true or false. Compile and save. And actually can make this private, so it's fine. No, actually it needs to be public, yeah, because we need to use that. Now what happened is that on the building part, we're just going to get actually, we need to do two conditions here. And when we get this, so if for some reason this fail, we send it to here, but also get can be used. And we're going to create a branch. If it's true, then it goes whatever it needs to go. If it's false, it defaults right here. Now what happened is that once the actor is selected, we're going to cast to last socket, so we have a reference of the last socket, and I will explain why we need that. So we add it here, so everything's fine. We can go back and also refactor this, put things inside classes and whatever. So now we have the spawn part, so we're gonna just call this inside parts and add inside these categories and the last socket. Now we're going to go back here to the parts. So we have the spawn placing parts, and this is when we confirm. We're just going to get the last socket, and we're going to basically API set can be used to false, all right? Because by default is true. And now if I go back and I do that and I try to aim that here again, I can't, but I can do it to the next one. Maybe what we can even do here, oh, there's an issue. That's cool. So what we can do here is that is valid. We just need to make sure this is valid because it may not be valid if it's the first interaction, right? Now what happened is that on the socket, if it can't be used, what we can do here is actually no, we don't need to worry about that because it's gonna be hidden in game, so it's fine. For now it's not, but we can enable that after. Alright guys, and that's how we basically do this part of the system, which is pretty cool. It's a little bit buggy there, but we can, you know, always improve that later on. Now we need to add the other part here. For some reason this keeps bugging out. It's probably, I think, the player collision. What we can actually do here, let me see if I can do, just before we finish this, I would like to kind of do a, can I make like a first person view or something? Or maybe that's, I don't know if that's gonna be too junky, but we can try, I guess. So what we can do here is that we can move the camera. The camera is gonna be moved too close to the player, unless we get a follow camera and we add it here. Let me have a look. Yeah, that kind of can work, you know. Yeah, I think that would be good actually. Let's go back here to the event graph. So instead of playing around with the camera boom, we're gonna get the follow camera and we're gonna set a relative location. So right now the camera is 0, 0, 0, 0, it's fine. But now if you want to make sure that the camera is kind of like in a first person, so that needs to be 45 and 60. And in this way, you guys also gonna learn how to create first person view, which is, you know, simple. Now, I am aware that it may be annoying to keep switching between them, but I guess we can leave it the way it is for now. It's fine. So for now, it's okay. Now we can make it like a smooth transition or something, but for now, we can leave it like this. At least we don't have the issue, you know. And also, you're in the first person, right? So go back. We can do that, and we can go back here. I don't know why it's doing that bug. Sometimes it's not interacting with. I think maybe do I need to put, let's say, I'm just gonna put like 600 for now. There's something with the camera that's not liking to do that. Okay, 600 works a little bit better, so we can probably leave it now. Alright guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.